This episode of Movieology is brought to you by the Nehemiah Foundation for Cultural Renewal. Bella Swan is set to marry her vampire love interest Edward Cullen, provoking an angry reaction from Jacob the werewolf, whose unrequited but persisting love for Bella drives him to oppose the marriage and all that it implies. Bella marries Edward anyway, and is impregnated with a half-vampire child on their honeymoon, which pregnancy nearly kills her. Breaking Dawn Part 1 stars Robert Pattinson, Kristen Stewart, and Taylor Lautner, and was directed by Bill Condon. This is Michael Minkoff, your guest host and a man of many words. For this reason, my review has been condensed to keep the video shorter, but you can read the full review at movieology.tv. So why is Twilight so popular? I don't think the reason is that it is such a great love story. It borrows very heavily from Gothic romances, e.g. the Bronte sisters, and yet the 2011 adaptation of Charlotte Bronte's Jane Eyre did not have anywhere near this level of support, despite the fact that Bronte's love story makes Twilight feel like a washed-out Xerox of a faded forgery, and the new Jane Eyre movie was as well made as the Twilight movies have been mediocre. But the Twilight movies touched a nerve in our culture, especially among women, and if we can detect that nerve, perhaps we will be closer to understanding our times. I think the attraction of the film is twofold, connected to two very primal fallen longings, one which is peculiarly female, another which is broadly shared by humans in general. Keep in mind that what follows is merely a theory, and its validity will rise or fall on how well it fits the evidence of the films and the books. After the fall, during God's distribution of curses from man's sin, God makes the following puzzling pronouncement concerning Eve and all her daughters. Your desire shall be for your husband, and he shall rule over you. Now, this doesn't seem all that bad. Man had already been given headship of the woman, and here God says that she would desire him. Doesn't really seem like a curse. But if you look at a similar phrase later in Genesis, the meaning becomes clear. Before Cain kills Abel, God confronts him and warns him about his sin with these words, "Sin is crouching at the door, and its desire is for you, but you must rule over it." Ha! So fallen woman has an intense desire to exercise mastery over her husband and or men, and now the husband, rather than being a loving head, is now going to exercise a tyrannical rule over his wife. But what does this have to do with Twilight? Well, I think the narrative is a fantasy construct through which the female audience is able to vicariously fulfill their fallen longing for a dominant love over a submissive male lover. Now hear me out. Meyer's narrative removes the curse on one side. Notice that Edward is generally selfless and unconditionally devoted to Bella, but Bella still desires dominance, and she gets it. Edward is more submissive than sacrificial. Bella, in many senses, is his god. She directs the relationship. She almost always gets what she wants, and honestly, her manipulative and childish self-centeredness was one of the least attractive elements of the books. But if this were just a love story about a selfish girl and a submissive weakling, it would hardly have any draw. See, this movie has vampires, and this important element leads to my second point. The vampire element of this story is the crucial factor in its appeal. But not because most teenage girls love vampire movies per se. See, Edward's great power makes his submission all the more exquisite. Consider that Edward knows what everyone is thinking, will live forever, has extraordinary power and grace, is sacrificially good. Wait, is this starting to sound familiar? Meyer's transformation of the vampire turns it from a demon to a demigod. Remember what I said about Edward being able to read everyone's mind? Well, that wasn't quite right. He can read everyone's mind except Bella's. Bella's blood is the most desirable blood Edward has ever smelled, yet he holds himself back. She exercises power over him. Though the danger to Bella is palpable, she's not afraid. The Twilight Saga could be named the Apotheosis of Bella Swan, for it tells the story of how Bella Swan first masters a god and then becomes one. The saga is captivating because it invites the average audience to experience this becoming God for themselves. It provides vicarious fantasy wish fulfillment of the most basic fallen female longing, to have mastery over a powerful man, and the most basic fallen human longing, to be as God. There are many tension builders along the way that seem to contradict my basic formula. For instance, Edward does not give Bella what she wants all the time in regards to premarital sex, and he does in fact leave her for a time against her wishes. But the story would be like 5 seconds long without these plot complications and the buildup of expectation that they provide. The story is satisfying in many ways because you wonder the whole time, will Bella attain the unattainable? I give Breaking Dawn Part 1 a 2.5 out of 5. It is mostly entertaining by accident, and while it is better made than previous Twilight films, it is still mediocre at best. I know many people will probably disagree with elements of this review or its entirety, so please, let us know what your thoughts are. Why do you think this film is so popular? What nerve does it touch so precisely that other, much better movies have not been able to find? And as usual, feel free to check out our other reviews on Movieology.tv. I'm Michael Minkoff. Until next time, thanks for watching Movieology. The Nehemiah Foundation for Cultural Renewal is a non-profit organization dedicated to the production and promotion of excellent Christian art. For too many years, Christian artists have been retreating from the vanguard of aesthetic excellence while diluting the truth in a futile attempt to gain the world's approval. The Nehemiah Foundation aims to rebuild the artistic reputation that the church once had by re-emphasizing integrity in both craft and content. Visit renewthearts.org to see what we've been up to, and be sure to listen to our newest record, Songs for Friends by Physic. This thing is cheap.
It was $8 on
This thing is really cheap.
Yeah, it was $8 at the bargain